Remember the start of 2020? That weird feeling in the air? The confusion, the fear, and then that sudden shocking quiet? Well, today we're going to journey back to that exact moment. Not through the news reports, but through something way more personal. The raw, private diary entries of people who were living through it. This is their story, in their own words.
First, you've got to remember what the atmosphere was like. Just look at these numbers from Turkey in March of 2020. It starts with a single case. A week later, almost 200. 4 days after that, it's over 1,000. This wasn't just some story on the news. It felt like an avalanche. And these diaries were written by people standing right in its path.
And that really is the perfect way to put it, isn't it? The numbers are just staggering, but they don't even begin to tell the real story. One person felt like words themselves just failed when faced with the sheer scale of it all. So let's go beyond the statistics and get into the human heart of this thing.
This quote, wow, it just gets right to the psychological core of what was happening. It wasn't just about a fear of getting sick, no. It was this creeping, shapeless anxiety that started to soak into everything. And that's the emotional landscape we're about to explore.
Okay, so this first section is all about that surreal moment of transition. You know, when a crisis that seemed like it was a world away suddenly shows up right at your front door, and suddenly normal life starts to feel like a memory.
What's so fascinating here is just how fast everything changed in people's minds. This person literally goes from seeing masks on a plane and trying to rationalize it, oh, they must be sick with something else, to landing at the airport and feeling sheer panic. It just shows how quickly the threat went from being abstract to being terrifyingly real.
You know, even in those early, super confusing days, you can feel this powerful sense of foreboding in the entries. A feeling that this wasn't just a blip. This person felt it deep down in their gut, that the world was fundamentally changing and we might not even recognize it when the fog finally lifted.
So as the reality of the crisis started to sink in, life just changed overnight. This next part explores the real heart of the lockdown experience, that feeling when the four walls of your home became your entire world, and the battle wasn't just against a virus outside, but also against the restlessness inside. And it just paints such a vivid picture of that new daily rhythm. It was this bizarre mix of the incredibly mundane, like doing the ironing, and this simmering paranoia, like a coworker going overboard with disinfectant. Anything from the outside world became a potential threat. And the home, which used to be a refuge, suddenly started to feel like a cage.
But, you know, this forced pause wasn't all just boredom and fear. For a lot of people, the sudden, shocking stillness of the world actually led to this really profound internal search for meaning. It was like a global moment of reckoning.
One diarist actually copied the words of an Italian psychologist into their journal, and it seemed to bring them some comfort. This idea that the pandemic wasn't just random chaos, but maybe it was the universe kind of rebalancing itself. It gave them a way to try and make sense of something that felt completely senseless.
And that idea led to these core paradoxes. Think about it. The air got cleaner, but we had to cover our faces to breathe it. A virus forced us apart, only to make us realize how much we rely on each other. We lost physical touch, and only then did we finally understand how important it was. It's like the crisis turned modern life upside down just to teach us what really mattered.
And the isolation, man, it had some really profound psychological effects. This entry is just chilling. After being inside for so long, this person catches a glimpse of themselves in a mirror and doesn't even recognize who they're looking at. It's such a powerful metaphor for how disconnected people felt, not just from the world, but from their own selves.
You know, a crisis of this scale, it's like a pressure cooker for human nature. It just strips away the everyday facade and reveals the full spectrum of who we are. The good, the bad, and the truly bizarre.
And you see that contrast so clearly right here. On one hand, you have these stories of supermarkets descending into chaos, a looting of shelves, just driven by pure fear. But on the other hand, you have people like this diarist, working themselves to the bone to build volunteer networks to make sure people had food. The crisis really did bring out both extremes.
And then there's the just weird stuff, the surreal, almost darkly funny side of it all. People wrote down these moments of absurdity, ruining their jeans because of some frantic advice. A guy flexing after sneezing to prove he was okay. A bored mom imagining herself as Rambo. These bizarre little moments were almost like a release valve from all that tension.
But amidst all that absurdity, the threat was deadly serious. This is a summary of one person's incredibly detailed diary of their fight with the virus. It takes us from the very first mild symptoms through excruciating pain, to the terrifying news that it was in their lungs,
to hospitalization, and finally, the long, hard road back. It's a really stark reminder of what was truly at stake.
So as that first wave started to fade, it became pretty clear that this wasn't just about going back to the way things were. The diaries show this slow, dawning realization that the world and the people in it had been fundamentally changed by the whole experience.
You see this feeling again and again in the later entries, this deep sense that even when the physical danger was over, the psychological scars were going to stick around. It wasn't just an event people got through, it was a collective trauma that would linger for years.
And maybe nothing captures that painful legacy more than this moment right here. At a funeral, the most basic human response, to comfort someone with a hug, gets overridden by the rules of the pandemic. The person writing this feels that brutal conflict. The rules made logical sense. They were necessary. But in that moment, they felt completely soulless.
And that really leaves us with this one final thought. The lockdowns ended, the curfews were lifted, and the world did its best to go back to normal. But these diaries show how much the experience changed us. So the real question is, while the world moved on, have we, as people, been permanently transformed by our corona days?